Hello everyone, and welcome back to Diablo 3, my hardcore challenge. We are in level 2 of the cathedral still. Or again, maybe. And yeah, just making my way down, I guess. And for the repetitive bits where nothing much is happening, I thought in this episode and probably the next few episodes I might talk about a little bit of astrophysics, because astrophysics is interesting, and so I prepared some notes which I have kind of lying next to me. And the first topic that I find interesting is that of stellar evolution, which essentially deals with how stars are formed, how they go through their life cycles, and what happens to them after they essentially stop being stars. So I guess the place to start is with the formation of stars. Smite. Smite enemies up to 30 yards away with holy chains. They deal 175% weapon damage as holy. The chains break off and strike up to 3 additional enemies within 20 yards for 150%. Okay. Fair enough. Shield bash. I instead get sweep attack. Blazing sweep. Enemies hit by the attack will catch on fire for 120% weapon damage over 2 seconds. Okay. So, spiral galaxies, which is an example of which would be the Milky Way, which we live in, they consist of stars, stellar remnants, which is what's left of a star after it dies, and interstellar medium, which is basically everything else. It's gas and dust. And this interstellar medium is fairly diffuse. It's not very dense. The usual density is something like maybe a few hundred particles per cubic centimeter, which is nothing. We have billions and billions of particles in a cubic centimeter of water, for example, so having maybe 100, maybe 1,000 is very little. So there's not much in the interstellar medium on average, but it's not uniform in its density, so it basically forms clouds, and in these clouds is where stars are born, because that's where there's a little more mass, a little more focused, and this skill works very nicely. So these clouds or nebula, they are among the more pretty of astronomical objects. If you just Google nebula, you will end up finding a lot of these. Wow, that walling thing is really annoying sometimes, especially in the cathedral where you don't have much space. So I wouldn't mind if these guys stopped. Oh well, I'm slowly getting rid of them, that's okay. And just in case it interests you, we have observed these nebula. You can find pictures of them if you Google. Just, I guess, googling nebula will probably be sufficient. They will usually be recolored images to look better, but they really do look very, very pretty. Always a good thing for a desktop background, for example. Okay, those walls are really getting on my nerves now. There we go. And yeah, the closest one we know that we've observed in our galaxy where really massive stars are formed is the Orion Nebula, which is about 1300 light years away. Which doesn't sound like much, but a light year is a really big distance. It's about 1300 light years is about 12,000 million kilometers. So doesn't necessarily sound like much, but it really is. Okay, I need to get you. And now I need to change my notes to the next page. La-di-la. Haha. Okay, and so these clouds are where stars are formed, and the mechanism by which that happens is cloud collapse. And it's a very common theme in this stellar evolution, that the life of a star or a stellar object is very much determined by the opposing forces of some kind of internal pressure and the force of gravitational collapse. So it's usually, on the one hand, an object is trying to collapse through gravity, and on the other hand, there's some external or internal pressure preventing it from collapsing. So these clouds, they tend to be very stable and just a little bit warmer than the surrounding space, about 10 degrees Kelvin as opposed to 2.7, which is the background heat of the universe. Both of these temperatures are very, very cold, minus 260 degrees centigrade, something along those lines. Oh hey, that's where the star came down. And because they exist as clouds, that usually means they are stable, which means that the force which is making it collapse, which is gravity, is exactly cancelled by the force which is making it expand further, or trying to make it expand further. There's some internal gas pressure, essentially, which counters the gravitational collapse, but some external trigger may change that balance. During those slightly more challenging fights, I might not be wanting to talk so much. Vortex is a little annoying, but I've almost got him down now. Okay, now for his minions. Okay, so essentially the cloud might become too massive, and when it becomes too massive, that means the internal pressure is no longer enough to counter the gravitational collapse. And there are a few known causes which might trigger this collapse. The cloud might collide with another cloud, which, just because we're not living in a static universe, it might well happen. No. Nope. There might be a supernova nearby, which is... I'll get to more detail about that later, but it's essentially a big explosion which might compress the cloud, or at least parts of the cloud, into a situation where they are too dense and start collapsing.
It's not my time to die.
Okay, the Unburied was more troublesome than the Ghost.
It was Lazarus.
As I said, I'll avoid listening to these codex entries things. If you're interested in them, watch my other playthrough, the Witch Hunter one, the Witch Doctor one, where I do all of the little detailed story bits and try to get all the conversations and all that stuff. Okay, another cause might be galactic collisions, which is essentially one galaxy colliding with another. And that sounds kind of catastrophic, but for most of the objects in those galaxies, it really isn't. For example, our galaxy, the Milky Way, is going to collide with the Andromeda Galaxy in the, well, in the very distant future. So, chances are humanity will no longer exist by then, or at least not in the same form, because the sun won't exist anymore. Summons a blast hammer that spins around you, dealing 320% weapon damage, is holy to all enemies hit. Isn't this a skill from Diablo 2? I think at least closely modeled on one. Okay, shield glare, blinding all enemies, now also makes blinded enemies take more damage. Okay. So a galactic collision between Andromeda and the Milky Way wouldn't have too huge of an effect on the galaxies in on the solar systems in either of the galaxies, except for looking really darn nice in the night sky. Yeah, I guess I'll go here. Okay, and a final final cause for a cloud to be compressed into collapsing is a stream, a jet from a black hole. So lots of stellar objects, essentially, due to their spin and such, shoot jets of radiation and energy into space. And if one of those were to hit a planetary nebula, it would cause collapse, or it could cause collapse at any rate. And that would be another mechanism by which collapse could start. And as the cloud collapses, it essentially breaks into smaller pieces, which break down further. And as they break down, they warm up, because they essentially, the particles in the clouds gain kinetic energy, which is what heating up means. Oh dear, 100 bonus enemies and I get those guys. But the hammer thing is nice.
I enjoyed that.
I just kind of doubt I'll get to the hundreds of enemies, the 100 enemies I need. Okay, but the hammer is working nicely here.
I require more wrath.
Okay, didn't manage to get the bonus. Oh well. But yeah, as they collapse, they gain more temperature. They warm up. And as they warm up, they eventually become opaque to their own radiation. And once they've done that, they no longer break up into smaller pieces, and the pieces that exist are kind of collapsing further and further, and condense into rotating spheres of gas. And the reason they rotate is essentially because of conservation of angular momentum. Okay, so these treasure goblins may leave behind a portal if they die. I think that's one of the changes in the new patch. Except this one has a lot of health, so... And I've never been in that realm, by the way, that opens up. Though I do like the idea of treasure goblins, they are a cool addition to the game. They remind me of the loot midgets and similar things in... Am I lagging? Okay, there it goes. Reminding me, as I said, of the loot midgets and those things in Borderlands. Okay. But he didn't leave behind a portal, sadly. This shield is a significant improvement. This helmet is a significant improvement. And this chest armor is a significant improvement. Significant improvements all around. Okay, so that's the second page of my notes done. This might go on over multiple episodes, by the way. I'm recording a few back-to-back at this point. Okay, so these rotating spheres of gas are protostellar clouds, which basically means they aren't stars yet, but they are turning into them. So because there's still not enough internal pressure to counteract collapse, they just keep collapsing and warming up further as the movement of particles is focused on a smaller and smaller area or volume. And there might be a little bit of talking now.
Your incantations. You will soon turn.
Ave magistros, ave registras, ave leodas.
Your magic is weakening. I am free.
Haha. Okay, nice.
Back to my mission.
I've decided I'll also skip through the dialogue, by the way. Like so.
Tell me, what brought you to this infernal place?
I have questions for the Skeleton King.
As do I.
And by questions, I mean I'm going to kill him. That appears to be the way these things usually work out.
I will enjoy this. Love it.
Oh, a boss. Evil Eye the Blasphemous. Ouch, mortar is really annoying.
The cultists dragged me past this glowing pit. What made it?
A falling star, and I need to find it.
Okay, fine. I'll deal with the minions first, I think. To get them out of the way. Okay, that one's almost dead now. Let's hope he doesn't have even more. So basically, as the cloud keeps collapsing, that protostellar cloud, eventually in the center a core will form, which, because of its heat, will have enough pressure to at least temporarily counter the collapse. So it still heats up because of the matter around the core still collapsing further and still gaining temperature. The core will also gain temperature, but it, at least for the moment, doesn't collapse any further. And once it reaches about 2000 degrees Kelvin, which is, at this point, the difference between degrees Kelvin and degrees centigrade is minimal. So 2000 degrees Kelvin is about 1730-ish degrees Celsius. So it doesn't really make much of a difference anymore. It at that stage becomes so hot that hydrogen molecules, which is H2, so two hydrogen atoms bonding together, they break apart and turn into...
Down this way. There are my weapons.
Okay, I'll deal with these summoners first though, before I deal with your weapons. And then I'll deal with my level up, because I completely forgot I had one. Okay. Well, I would lose the shield. But I would gain some damage, but I think I'm okay. I'll stick to what I have now. And skills. Steed charge. Mount a celestial warhorse that allows you to ride through enemies unhindered for 2 seconds. Why not? And a new passive skill. Vigilant. Reduce all non-physical damage taken by 20% to increase life regeneration. I think I'll put that on for boss fights and such, but not right now. Okay, let's see how the horse works.
I am Cormac,
Nice.
warrior of the Templar Order. If it is...
Oh, okay. So I think this is the point to end the episode. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.